former Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, is now facing a crisis of faith. He was once married to a Jew, Jemima Goldsmith, and has two Jewish sons. Yet he goes on chanting death to Jews and death to Zionist slogans. The war between Israel and Palestine is not a religious war between Jews and Muslims. What it is a game of politics and power. Imran Khan would rather sacrifice his ex-wife and children at the altar than to condemn the Hamas barbaric terrorist genocide against the Israelis because it does not suit his political narrative. Unless he chants slogans of killing the Jews and praising Hitler, he will not be accepted by the Islamic world, led by Iran, Turkey and Qatar, into their fold. I'm going to start off this conversation. Professor Nalapat on the telecast with me. Professor Nalapat, I pick up this topic from the news spec that has come with Jemima Goldsmith Khan, who was once the wife of Imran Khan. She's a reputed Jew living in London, and she's come out saying that her children are targeted because they are Jews. She's been targeted because she's Jew, and she speaks about Islamophobia. She speaks about antisemitism. But in all of it, it is not about the politics of religion. It is not about Jews against the Arabs or Jews against the Muslims, but it is actually about the centralization of power that is held by the Arab countries in the Middle East, and Pakistan obviously has to toe the line, and therefore Imran Khan too has to toe the line, even though he has married a Jew in the past.
Well, actually, a lot of Arab countries have established good relations with Israel. The Abraham Accords have taken place. Now, what is happening, Megha, as you very well know, is that there is now a growing separation between the overwhelming majority of Muslims who are moderate. And for example, Mohammed bin Salman, he has openly said Wahhabism is not the way to follow. The first al-Saud to say that. And those people who believe in a radical version of that faith. Now, the reality is Imran Khan sacrificed love for power. He was very, even though Jemima converted to Islam after marrying Imran Khan, I mean, and according to information I have, her children were also, regarded as Muslim because of the fact that Imran was a very prominent Muslim who wanted a career in politics in Pakistan, and the children had to be Muslim for that career to succeed. So, but she was actually a perfect wife for Imran Khan. Had Pakistan evolved in a moderate direction, but the reality, because after all, she did convert to Islam. And even if she had not converted to Islam, frankly, I don't think it should have made any difference. And it ought not to make a difference, because these tags shouldn't really matter. But the reality of the situation is that Imran Khan sacrificed his love, sacrificed his marriage on the altar of political power. And that is what Jemima is basically saying, that Jemima's children are attacked by Islamophobes in the UK, and they're attacked by anti-Jewish people in Pakistan. So they have, in a sense, the worst of both the worlds.
Yeah, but the worst of both the worlds is being again made worse by her husband, by her ex-husband as well, who for his political gains, he has to showcase his anti-Semitism, which he wears on the sleeve, as do other political party leaders of Pakistan.
You're quite right. And Imran Khan, frankly, it's a disgrace that he has supported many radical groups, including in Afghanistan, including in Pakistan, and he has indulged the most virulent India-phobia, and if I may say so, Hindu-phobia. He has indulged in hate speech of a very obnoxious kind, and basically not only made his peace with, but actually facilitated a lot of extremist groups. The man has come a long way since the days when he was a cricketing star with so many admirers in Mumbai, for example, apart from other parts of the world. He has come a long way. Frankly, it's been a very opportunist direction. Now, what Imran Khan really believes in, one does not know. But you're absolutely right, Megha, that he has, as the Prime Minister of Pakistan, supported very extreme groups and has promoted a Hindu hatred, India hatred, and basically bad relations between Pakistan and India. There's no doubt about it that he has basically, instead of fighting for the the moderate middle, he has been fighting on behalf of the fringe, the radical fringe, and that's a real shame.
Yeah, absolutely. Gautam, God forbid there was an attack that happened on his children who are half Jew by a Muslim fundamentalist or an extremist group. We've seen this happening across Europe, in United States of America. In fact, there was a teacher who had been stabbed by this Islamist fundamentalist who called himself to work on the call of the ISIS. Now, if a similar attack was to be perpetuated against the half-Jew sons of Imran Khan, would he then again continue to support? Would he praise it? Would he laud it and say this is in line with what Pakistan follows, in line with what Imran Khan follows as a political leader for an anti-Semitic cause?
It's as Professor Nalapat just said, there is a schism between moderate Islam, which accounts for the most of the states which are in the Gulf and in North Africa, certainly Indonesia, Malaysia. None of these people are advocates of radical Islam. You do have ISIS, Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, and they all originate in the Middle East and are backed by radical governments in Iran. But Iran is not Saudi Arabia anymore, neither is UAE. You have got a few countries that advocate this kind of radical Islam. One is, of course, Pakistan, and Imran Khan, as a former Prime Minister of Pakistan, which is dominated by the army that creates hate every day against India, as well as is considered terrorist central. Then you've got Turkey. You've got the last of the Islamic backers, the Islamic Jihad backers in the Gulf is, of course, Qatar, which has also financed the Hamas in a big way, and it boils down to Iran. So you've got two lots of Muslims. The other very interesting thing, Qatar, which is an Islamic jihadi backer and financier, said recently that, look, you Indian Muslims should butt out. You're all converts. You do not understand Islam the way the Arab does. And if you're so concerned about Gaza, come here and fight in Gaza. Otherwise, shut up. I mean, in blunt terms, the Amir of Qatar said this just 2 or 3 days ago. Now, so what you're seeing is schism after schism. There's the Shia Sunnis, Iran being the leader of the Shia sort of radicals, Sunni radicals in Taliban. You've got the subcontinental Muslims who are a breed apart. You've got Muslims farther afield in Malaysia, Indonesia, who are very similar to the Arab Muslims. And so you cannot really, sweep all this with the same brush. In Britain, you've got 270,000 Jews, self-confessed Jews, and 3 million Muslims of all shades of opinion, no doubt. But it is the radical Islamists, that's the side that everybody is in trouble with. They're the ones who kill people in France. They're the ones who kill people in Brussels, which is the EU capital. Now, this will have to shake out with moderate Islam just completely divorcing themselves from these people. And that is the way it is headed.
Yeah.
Hamas
But
Hamas
also,
is not
the,
the Arab
the
nation
radicalism
anymore.
that we see in Islam and these handful of people, just a smaller part of the large community that Islam at this point of time represents is causing the world to then spread Islamophobia, and perhaps it is not their fault.
Well, it's a lot like the Naxals who gave the entire communist situation, the Maoists still do it, a bad name. Not all communists are extreme, but this is what has happened. And then communism in terms of other countries like the Soviets and the Chinese have gone through many iterations. Now, but sticking to the point, I mean, Chinese are bullying the Yazgars, something terrible, Uyghurs. But what this is about, nobody wants the Palestinians and the Lebanese.
Yeah.
Nobody in the Arab world, nobody in the Western world. The Western world has burnt its fingers by letting in the Syrians and the people who came out of Arab Spring, out of North Africa.
Yeah, but except for the Scottish First Minister who's come out and said he's
and it's not working. Wherever you've got ISIS, Hamas, and its ilk, you've got trouble even for Islam.
Yeah, that's exactly what these Arab states, Jordan and Egypt, they are scared that, as soon as the more and more of these Palestinians are allowed to cross the border into Egypt or to Jordan, what is going to happen is that this Hamas and Hezbollah are again going to travel to all these countries and wreak havoc. They are going to turn these countries into terrorist havens. So, okay, a tough question here, but Adit, again coming back to you on this discussion, and the point that I wanted to raise was, now there are these humanitarian aid that is being provided by Pakistan to the Palestinians. I've never seen or never heard of a humanitarian aid that Pakistan government came out and in support of Afghanistan when there is this series of earthquakes that have happened. I think 6,000 or plus people have died in that span of 1 week, then some 6 earthquakes that took place. Neither did I see any of this humanitarian aid that was pouring in from Pakistan when the Sri Lanka debt crisis happened. So why this affinity to the Muslim brothers across the globe and Palestinians themselves? And if such is your friendship and camaraderie with the Muslim world, why no action and why is there silence when the Muslims of Xinjiang are attacked by the Chinese and killed?
All the Muslims of Balochistan, are the Baloch people, are they not Muslims enough? They've been suffering for the best part of the last 75, 76 odd years. There are thousands of Baloch which protest on the streets of Islamabad and Karachi on a daily basis, crying out for their missing children. So are they not Muslim enough is the question that we need to be asking, because apparently, Megha, you touched a very, very sensitive nerve here, because the larger Muslim population around the world, those who are crying out for the Palestinian cause, those who are crying out for, when they look at pictures of babies being hurt with bullets or, as a casualty, they never come out and raise their voice about, the Baloch children. They have been hurt so many times. They've been killed. They've been murdered. They've been raped. The brutality and the barbarism that goes on in Balochistan has never been covered in the Western media as much as Palestinian cause has been covered. So there is this sense of hypocrisy, and the Muslim world somehow seems to rally in a united front because there is this Islamic othering when the phenomenon is connected to the Palestinian cause. So the Islamic othering is against the Jewish people. Similarly, in India, it's going to be against the Hindu population, which is what essentially drives them to connect together. The Shia-Sunni divides, the 72 firqas of Islam, they all, seem to put away the differences into a dark basket, and they start to rally behind this particular cause. So there is this problem, there is this dilemma within the Muslim world. But I think the larger point that we need to touch upon is the silent majority. The silent majority in the West, the silent majority in India, I don't think we can absolve them any longer. Because they have to come out and they have to question the institutions which are spreading hate, which are essentially standing and providing intellectual cover fire to extremism and terrorism. What we saw in London just day before yesterday at 10 Downing Street was a horrific sight, where tons and tons of protesters and pro-Palestinian protesters came out outside the Prime Minister's residence to basically call the fourth prayer of the day, which essentially has very objectionable sort of detailing about how Islam should treat Jews and Christians.
Yeah.
And there is absolutely nothing in the Western media which essentially talks about that. So, that political correctness has to be kicked into the dustbin. And we now have to start calling the spade a spade.
Okay.
Enough
right.
with this.
Professor Nalpat, again, a valid point raised by Adit. He says about when Hamas targets Israelis and there is a terrorist attack, there are hundreds and thousands of Jews that are killed. This also invigorates other terrorist organizations, the Hezbollah, ISIS, Lashkar-e-Taiba, and Pakistan as a country as a whole, which has anti-Hindu sentiment, which wants to take over Kashmir, which continues to infiltrate terrorists into Kashmir because of the agenda that they have, which they then go about perpetuating, will go about propagating across the globe. It's almost as if a clarion call of all these Muslim fundamentalists who have come together and said that they're daring to now attack whether it is Hindus or the Jews or anybody who's allowing for who are looking to survive and who are not Islamic. So anybody who does not follow Islam is a kafir. And that's the sentiment, that's the ideology these fundamentalist extremists, including Pakistan, have been following.
Actually, Megha, the point is not that anybody who's not following Islam. Anybody who's not following Islam as defined by these radicals. And these radicals, if you go entirely by the text, then whether one goes to paradise or one goes to hell is entirely dependent on the Almighty. And the Almighty takes that decision once you leave, this earth. Now you have individuals who claim that this is the road to paradise. That is the road to paradise. This is where paradise awaits you. Frankly, this is sheer blasphemy, because only the Almighty has the right to say which is the road to paradise and where you are going to go. So the problem is that you have this bunch of extremists who are speaking in the name of a great religion. And yes, the point about the silent majority, that there is a point about that. But the fact of the matter is that when you take the media, when you take the political discourse, every time the people who get played up are the radical people, the radical fringe. Okay. They're the ones who come on television screens. They're the ones who politicians call for meetings, etc., etc. Now, in the future cannot be radical. The future cannot be anything other than multi-religious and multicultural, as we have in India. I mean, whether in any city in the world, if you have exclusivist, extremist people in charge, that city falls to pieces. Look at Beirut. And wherever you have a tolerant attitude, well, then that city does extremely well.
Okay.
And this is the point that I think everybody needs to understand. The future has to be moderate for the future to be good.
Absolutely. Gautam Mukherjee, while we have these moderate Arab countries, UAE and Saudi Arabia particularly, they've just come out in the last 24 hours and condemned the Hamas attack. And this also showcases which is the kind of side that they want to take in this Hamas-Israel war, Jews versus the Arabs, Jews versus the extremists, I wouldn't say the Arabs. So why is it that on one hand they continue to appear as moderates, continue to appear as the proponents of peace deals and harmony and moderate behavior in the Arab world, but at the same time continue to provide assistance, aid, loans to a country like Pakistan, whose very basis, fundamental, is based on fundamentalism, extremism, jingoism, where it is all right for the ministers to stand in the parliament and say, Hail Hitler and death to the Jews.
As far as Saudi Arabia's relationship with Pakistan goes, Pakistan has provided the foot soldiers for the Saudi army in their battle with the Houthi. They are, after all, trained soldiers by definition, and they're, as subcontinental soldiers, far better than the ones that Saudi has been able to develop on its own. Otherwise, traditionally, the Gulf armies are populated by Balochis, who are also, for a long time, the recruiting ground for these people. Now, there is some element of dependence, if you like, a little fear, because after all, Pakistan is a nuclear state and surrounded and infested by radicals, terrorists and radicals. What will happen if it totally collapses and breaks into pieces is not something that, the Gulf in particular, who are cheek by jowl, are very keen on finding out about. So this is also the reason why the Americans fund them. It's also the reason why India does not push them as hard as it might. So you've got a liability on your hands. However, as I've said many times, I think Pakistan is headed for a breakup, but it's going to be an organic breakup. They themselves will break into pieces without very much help from the outside.
Okay.
And there is nothing China or the Arabs or any of us can do about it, because they've mismanaged themselves to such a degree. And when they were useful to the big powers, for example, America vis-a-vis Afghanistan when they were opposing the Russians, or some other reason for keeping Pakistan bribed, it was one thing. But when all of that falls off, now the only people who are interested in keeping Pakistan bribed are the Chinese, and the Chinese are not in the same position economically as they used to be. So all of it is militating against them. So the radical fringe is under great pressure. ISIS is largely finished.
But then again,
Hamas
when we
is on
say
its
this,
last legs.
the war of superpowers, and you speaking about China, as Gautam Mukherjee raised this point, Adit, quickly a comment from you. So this is a war of superpowers. It's got nothing to do with religion. It's got nothing to do with fundamentalism and extremism, whether it is the Muslims or the Christians or the Hindus or the Jews or the Sikhs or whichever community you talk about. China plays a very well thought out plan when it goes about falling short of condemning the Hamas attack as a terrorist attack, as a genocide against the Jews. Now, this simply also works in its favor when it comes to the Middle East. It also works in its favor when it is going about supporting Pakistan, where there has been a recent ceasefire violation that has taken place after 3 years against India. So, in a very, strong, aggressive approach that is applying across the globe, in a bid to fight out the US supremacy in the world, this is one tactic that it can use, the Islamic fundamentalism that works in its favor, because these countries and it supports, whether it is Iran or for that matter Qatar or for that matter Turkey and now Pakistan as well, it just works in its favor to fight out the democratic forces in the world.
That's correct. I think from a Chinese perspective, they've managed to balance out their geopolitical interests very well vis-a-vis the problem of Islamification or the Islamization of, be it the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, or how they see Pakistan, which has been a sort of a basket for terrorism globally. So they've essentially been able to balance out that perspective really well, whether it be in international institutions like the United Nations or within its own sort of internal domain when the Global Times is essentially covering this subject. Whereas their own Islamic problem, their internal problem, has a completely different take. So this is extremely well documented, and where the Chinese are essentially trying to play this is also to try to balance out their relations with the Russians, because that is also a very delicate relations vis-a-vis the Russian-Ukraine war. And the Russians also have a certain stake in what's essentially panning out between Israel and the Gaza Strip. So that sort of domain is China seems to be balancing that really well. But the larger point that I actually wanted to make, Megha, today is that if you look at it from a global perspective, this has now come down to a fight between the sort of humanists, people who believe in democracy, people who believe in human values, and those who are trying to establish a totalitarian regime. So all of those people who are completely oblivious to what happened on the 7th and 8th of October and are coming out on the streets to rally behind Palestine, forgetting about the brutal and barbaric killings and rapes on the 7th and 8th of October, they are the ones who are advocating terrorism, extremism, and a totalitarian regime. Absolutely. And that is what we need to be focusing on.
All right, I'm out of time, but I thank all of you for joining me on the telecast, sharing your views.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.